I'm your chair, Jocelyn Pena-Milnick. Please set your electronic devices to vibrate, and I would ask you for patience if something goes wrong technically. We're going to start right away with House Bill 94, going on to House Bill 290, and we're going to finish with House Bill 46. House Bill 94, will you be so kind? These are all departmental bills. This is the opioid-associated disease prevention and outreach programs, appeals and membership of Standing Advisory Committee. Tell us your name and welcome to the Health and Government Operations Committee.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairwoman. Alyssa Lord, Deputy Secretary for the Behavioral Health. I know. Nice to see you.
So much on Zoom.
I know. I exist outside of a box. So happy New Year to you all. Good to be back with you during the polar vortex. I don't know if we can pass legislation about warming things up, although that's probably a separate conversation about global warming, not what we're here to talk about. Good afternoon, Chairwoman, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. Alyssa Lord, Deputy Secretary, Behavioral Health. We've already done that. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today in support of House Bill 94, Opioid-Associated Disease Prevention and Outreach Programs, Appeals, and Membership of the Standing Advisory Committee. This bill seeks to make a technical modification to the existing legislation that will enable a local health department or community-based organization to appeal to the secretary or the secretary's designee regarding the outcome of an application for authorization to operate an opioid-associated disease prevention and outreach program, as well as updating the secretary or the secretary's designee shall chair the Standing Advisory Committee. This legislation will transfer responsibilities currently held by the Deputy Secretary of the Public Health Administration to the Secretary of Health or the Secretary's designee. This transfer of duties will allow the Secretary to assign these responsibilities as necessary in the future without requiring new legislation. The state currently operates close to 100 opioid-associated disease prevention and outreach programs across the state. With this proposed revision, there is no anticipated operational impact. This technical change allows the department to align across other designated functions of the Secretary. MDH promotes and enhances the health and safety of all Marylanders through disease prevention, harm reduction, access to care, quality management, and community engagement, and opioid-associated disease prevention and outreach programs are a critical tool in addressing Maryland's response to the opioid epidemic. In summary, this revision to the legislation positions Maryland to respond more effectively to the opioid crisis by centralizing authority, leveraging specialized expertise, and ensuring operational excellence. Thank you for your consideration of this important legislation, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Testimony, I'm going to open it up for question. Are there any questions? Vice Chair Collison.
Sorry, Madam Chair. Sorry, Alyssa. So I just want to confirm what I think I hear is that by making this change, the Secretary can appoint designees to that, and I also heard you say with appropriate expertise to, be her representative in any one of those programs.
Yes, ma'am, you heard correctly.
Thank you.
Questions? Delegate Hill.
Quick, and so the symmetry would have been from Deputy Secretary of Public Health to Deputy Secretary of Behavioral Health, but to avoid this in the future, that's why you're moving it to the Secretary of the Department. Just no more subs. Got it.
Exactly, to the Secretary or the Secretary's designee.
Any other questions? Are you guys ready to vote on it? No, just kidding. Maybe I will consider that in the future. Actually, let me think about it. No? Just kidding. I thought I would make you laugh. Anyway, thank you so much for your testimony, and thank you for the work and for being available, okay? We really appreciate you.
Thank you for all of your support.
You're welcome. This concludes the bill hearing on House Bill 94. Now we are going to go on to House Bill 290, and that is actually the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner, disclosure of autopsy information and maintenance of investigative database. We do have 2 witnesses from the Maryland Office of the Chief Medical Examiner, and then we have 1 unfavorable that will go to that panel next. So good afternoon, nice to see you. Good afternoon. You can get started.
All right, thank you, Chair Peña-Melnick, Vice Chair and Committee. As you know, I'm Nilesh Kalyana-Raman, the Deputy Secretary of Public Health, and I'm really here just to support our Chief Medical Examiner, Dr. Stephanie Dean, who is our new Chief Medical Examiner for the office. So I will turn it over to her.
Hello. Hi. I'm good. How are you? My name is Dr. Stephanie Dean. I am the Chief Medical Examiner for the state of Maryland. And I'd like to thank Madam Chair and the members of the committee for allowing me the opportunity to testify on House Bill 290. As a physician, I deeply value the balance between transparency for public health purposes and the protection of privacy for Maryland's residents. Under Maryland law, the OCME is required to deny inspection of public records containing medical or psychological information with the sole exception of autopsy reports. However, the definitions of OCME work products, such as autopsy report, remain overly broad, creating significant challenges in balancing transparency and privacy. A recent judicial ruling has further highlighted the lack of clear definitions regarding what constitutes an autopsy report, and that ambiguity underscores the urgent need for updated legislation to provide clarity and protect sensitive information. Autopsy reports often include sensitive details such as organ examinations, injury descriptions, blood tests, and pregnancy status. While these details are critical for forensic and medical purposes, they may not be relevant to the cause and manner of death and should not be broadly disclosed. To address these concerns, the OCME proposes to clarify the definitions of key OCME work products, including autopsy report and final autopsy diagnosis. Releasing final autopsy diagnoses would provide valuable public health information such as cause and manner of death, age, race, and gender, while at the same time safeguarding privacy. The same concerns extend to sensitive information within our OCME database, which lacks adequate protection due to outdated legislative safeguards. This bill proposes the continued release of age, race, gender, cause, and manner of someone's death. Above all, let's please remember that each decedent is not merely a data point, but a person, someone's parent, child, sibling, or friend. By modernizing these safeguards, we can uphold public health objectives while honoring human dignity. So we urge lawmakers to support House Bill 290 and collaborate with us to find a balanced solution that advances public health while at the same time protecting the privacy and trust of Maryland's residents. Thank you.
Do we have any questions for the doctor who's here for the first time in our committee? She's here for the first time. Any questions?
There you go.
Okay. Any real questions? Delegate Hutchinson.
Hi, Doctor. Thanks for being here. So I noticed the opposition is the press, and she's going to come up and give her position on that.
Yes, sir.
What is it that normally would be disclosed? I mean, what? Give you an opportunity to sort of refute maybe what she may came up and say. Sure.
So currently, what gets disclosed is the entire autopsy report. At this time, no one can oppose that opposition, or that disclosure. So if a family member does not want their loved one's autopsy report to be released, that is not possible under the current law. I've had numerous family members contact me directly and plead with me to not release their loved one's personal details. And unfortunately, the only thing I can tell them is, I'm sorry, but there's nothing I can do.
But this bill at least allows what you said, some of the basic, the demographics, the cause of death, certain things to be released.
Yes.
And is this a freedom of information aspect, or can could I go and ask for somebody's autopsy report?
You could go and ask for anybody's autopsy report.
And you give them to them?
Yes.
Interesting. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Let's see, who's next? Delegate Bagnall.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for this. Just for our edification, because this speaks to what's publicly available, nothing in this would preclude like a request if there was a future audit into malfeasance within the agency. Is that correct? This information could still be subpoenaed through like a court order or court process.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
I don't see any other questions, but as you're talking, I am picturing my mother's death certificate, and she passed away in a car accident. And the death certificate was really, it had everything about how the accident happened. It had my stepdad's name, it had the address, everything in there. And right now, you can get that information, right? All of that. So if he didn't want, and he passed away a year and a half ago, if he did not want his name given, you could have, it would have been there. Right now, you can get his name, right? And the details of that accident and everything else.
So first off, I'm very sorry for the loss of your mother. And that's incredibly difficult. Right now, in the state of Maryland, death certificates actually are not considered public record, whereas the autopsy report is. So the death certificate does contain additional demographic information, as you alluded, and that is all protected currently.
But the autopsy has some of the same information and is not protected.
Correct.
Yeah, because when I read it, I was like, wow, it had so much stuff, personal stuff in there as well. Delegate Hill.
Thank you. And I wasn't going to ask a question, but you hit it. So other public information things, we give folks the right to redact irrelevant information. But when you're really talking about things like people don't need to know my history from 20 years ago, what you found, because that's also in there too, the history that you gather about a person's medical history and other things, how many times they committed, attempted suicide or whatever else they did. That's all in the autopsy report because that's information that's relevant to you, but that's not information about how they died, that kind of stuff.
Correct. In certain contexts, it might be relevant, in which case, in the final autopsy diagnosis, if it's relevant to the medical examiner's conclusions as to their cause and manner of death, they may mention that, but in summary form. And all of the records which you may be referring to would be housed in our database, and that's why it's important to keep that
And no opportunity,
protected.
unlike other agencies, to redact. When you're said you have to give it, you have to give the whole thing. You don't have the authority to redact information.
Correct.
Okay.
It is.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question. I see that the Office of Public Defender is against the bill. How would this bill affect, let's say, a plaintiff that is trying to prove their innocence? So
that should not affect it at all. They actually reached out to us with that question separately. The language does not impact a defendant's right to discovery, and the PIA is a separate process. There's already existing language in the legislation to protect the defendant's right to discovery, and they would obtain that through the normal subpoena and discovery process.
I do have a follow-up. Are there pictures sometimes in these reports?
So currently, the photographs are protected. We
Okay.
do take photographs as part of the routine autopsy procedure, and those are protected.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any other questions. Thank you so much for your testimony, and welcome to Maryland.
Thank you.
We do have one witness unfavorable, and that is Rebecca Snyder from the Maryland Press, Maryland, D.C. Press. How are you?
I am well. Thank you all for slogging through. I know it's been a long day. And I will be brief, and thank you, Delegate Hutchison, for foreshadowing some of the things that we're going to talk about. For the record, my name is Rebecca Snyder. I'm the Executive Director of the Maryland, Delaware, D.C. Press Association. And as the panelists before me shared, this bill is in reaction to a lawsuit brought by the Baltimore Banner. I linked to it in my testimony so you can see. And one of the reasons, the press wants data sets and information so that we can report accurately on that particular instance was the opioid crisis in Baltimore City. And records were held and not disclosed, and they wound up having to go to the courts to get those records. I think with this bill, the fungibility of final autopsy diagnosis, knowing that's a narrowing of the autopsy record, I think we have to be really careful about what determining and making sure that we know what's included in that final diagnosis. Because what reporters are looking at, and you can use the banners reporting on their suit to kind of understand the scope of the crisis. Yes, we definitely want to make sure manner of death, age, location, race, gender, cause, sort of mitigating circumstances are included in that final autopsy diagnosis. But none of that is in the law. It's just final autopsy diagnosis. That definition could change unless it's under statute. We, of course, would want and believe that, and it is a balance, nobody wants to have the sort of the prurient details of someone's autopsy trotted out in the public frame. But there are times where if someone dies in police custody, you want to know more detail than perhaps might be in that final diagnosis. You want to make sure that we're able to report accurately and fully on a situation. And so I just want to caution the committee as you work through this bill, there's a balance there, and we want to make sure that the reporters can report accurately and fully. So right now, we urge an unfavorable report.
I see Delegate Hutchinson, followed by Hill.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome.
So it sounds as if you're not completely opposed to limiting some of the data that's there. You're just concerned about the definition of what is actually going to be released and not released. Is that what I'm hearing?
I started out being diametrically opposed because it seems like such, candidly, a jerk move to say, okay, we lost this lawsuit, so we're just going to change the definition. And candidly, I couldn't make the Senate hearing, so I didn't get to hear what the piece was. So it is helpful to know that the intention is to provide manner, age, gender, the pieces. However, I do think, just philosophically, the press wants all, but I'm also not naive. I know that people sometimes want less. And I do believe the medical examiner's office can redact more than they believe that they can redact, because every custodian in the state of Maryland can redact a lot of information. So I feel like more is better, but I'm realistic, and as long as it's truly clearly defined about what is in that final autopsy diagnosis, I think we could get to we would never be in favor, but we could probably get to a no position.
So knowing that you are willing to compromise, as I learned last year, working with you, have you met with the department to try to work through that at all?
No, we haven't. It's early in the session. I have not yet, but I'm willing to do that.
I think there's probably a compromise in the works.
I would hope so.
He's a smart man. I will listen. Delegate Hill.
I don't need to, he's a smart man.
Thank you. Any other questions? Delegate Bagno.
Madam Chair and Delegate Hutchinson is a very smart man. I just wanted to also ask about legislative intent. I agreed that we want transparency and we do want press to have access, but we do also recognize that we have a deterioration of investigative journalism, and we have a proliferation of a race to the bottom. So I, as you're having those conversations, I would suggest to try and find that balance as well, so that we are not creating an environment where anyone can call themselves a journalist and put information out there that could be harmful and painful to families. And I'm certain that you will be able to find that balance. Isn't that so?
Thank you.
Yeah. So I don't see any other questions. I would advise you to take the smart man's advice and meet. And I think that the
No,
delegate.
every time you guys say the Delegate Hutchinson is a smart man, it's transcribed into record forever, so. And I'm going to capture every single one of those, okay?
It'll be a montage.
I think that I like, that is cool. That is wonderful. Look, I think that the concern here is finding that balance for that family, right?
Right.
Like, I wouldn't want you to have my name, my address. I wouldn't want you to know what illnesses I had or things that are not relevant to you, that you should not, it's none of your concerns, right? So I think that it is early, but we are going to do our work because there are a lot of bills out there that have not been filed yet. And this committee is going to start moving bills as of this Friday coming that are good policy. And I think that this is one where you should meet with them and see what you can do, okay?
Absolutely. Thank you.
As well. Thank you so much for coming. We appreciate your work. This concludes the bill hearing on House Bill 290. Next, we have the last bill of the day. It is House Bill 46. It is 418. It is Public Health, Cannabis Public Health Advisory Council membership. Good afternoon. Can you give us your name?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Yes, I'm standing between you and the end of the day.
It's okay. We're going to give you the respect. You tell us what's on your mind.
Good afternoon, Chair Melnick, Vice Chair Cullison, and the members of the committee. For the record, my name is Dr. Timothy Kearns. I'm Director of the Maryland Highway Safety Office and Maryland's Vision Zero Coordinator. Madam Chair, I would also like to express my condolences for your loss. We hear those stories far too often in our line of work, and it's our goal every day not to have people have those stories and make sure all the loved ones get home. I am here today to testify in support of House Bill 46. House Bill 46 will add the Motor Vehicle Administration Administrator or an agency designee to the Cannabis Public Health Advisory Council. Since 2023, this council's focus has been to promote public health discussions on the mitigation of youth consumption, along with data collection and reporting on the recreational use of cannabis in our state. This bill is about creating a more inclusive and diverse council that will help us to strengthen its core mission to address the many public health issues and the complex challenges of recreational cannabis use, including impaired driving. Having a traffic safety expert on the council with their specialized knowledge and valuable experience will offer much needed insight to the group's mission and efforts to address the risks associated with driving under the influence of cannabis, which includes decreased coordination, impaired judgment, and slower reaction times. The new member can also be a valuable asset when it comes to helping the council craft regulatory recommendations aimed at reducing impaired driving incidents, including strategies for enforcement, education, and prevention. I would like to mention that our Highway Safety Office currently utilizes a data-driven approach to build effective strategies, create action steps, and establish performance measures to help achieve our goal of 0 roadway deaths. This experience will be crucial when it comes to interpreting data related to cannabis-impaired driving and helping the council make critical and informed decisions based on the evidence that's available. Over the past year, the Highway Safety Office has worked closely with the Maryland Cannabis Administration to share best practices and ensure consistent messaging focused on preventing individuals from operating a motor vehicle after consuming cannabis or alcohol. In your records, you will also find a letter of support from the Maryland Department of Health, which adds that having a traffic safety expert's input can truly contribute to developing much-needed strategies to lower the risks associated from cannabis-impaired road safety and the overall public safety initiatives of the council. I respectfully request the committee's favorable report on House Bill 46, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I thank you for your work, okay? I'm going to open it up for questions now. Vice Chair Collison.
Again, I apologize, but
It's
thank
okay.
you. And I'm not sure that this is relevant to the bill necessarily, but I hope you can tell us. I've heard recently that they're beginning to find an instrument to measure the possibility of someone having had cannabis before driving. Are you aware of that at all, or is that
Before driving? You've heard of the DADS technology that measures alcohol. There is technology that measures passive alcohol in somebody's system before they're able to engage or start the vehicle. There is technology that will, I don't know that it's quite here yet, but there is technology that can use transdermal detection to measure substance use that would function the same. I haven't seen a demonstration of it yet, but I do know that that's something that's in the pipeline that they're working on.
Yeah, I know that's something that constituents raise to me frequently. It's like, they are okay with the legalization, but it's like, are we able to determine when they're driving that they shouldn't be driving? So
Yes, that's one of the difficulties, and one of the recommendations is for somebody that consumes cannabis is to wait 6 hours before they operate a motor vehicle to make sure everything is out of their system. And the difference in somebody's metabolism, and the method of ingestion, so whether they're gummies or whether it's smoking or something like that, can vary. So if it's gummies and the ingestion takes a little longer, they may want to wait even longer. So there is a need for that, so they know if they're impaired.
okay, great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I did not know that. Maybe if that can be, put in some type of, I know that you're tasked with doing some education, getting that information out will be great.
That's something that we're already working with the Maryland Cannabis Commission on, is to making sure people know how they are affected by cannabis.
Yeah.
Cannabis combined with alcohol especially can be a little more debilitating and cause even more impairment. So we're trying to make sure we get that message across to as many different populations as we can.
Thank you. Delegate Hill.
Just for the record, we do have a Cannabis Public Health Youth Advisory Commission that's tasked with addressing the public health issues specific for youth, but it's part of our charge because I'm one of the members on the commission, or it's the council, it's not a commission. We also look to seeing, we're not charged with public health for the adult population, but we try to get that information out too.
Yes.
Working with, so actually there may be a bill, we may have to do a bill to make it youth and adult advisory, because there's public health implications at all ages.
And I do want, that's great information, and I do want to congratulate everyone on this committee, because this Cannabis Public Health Advisory Council was the product of this committee. We worked with the Economic Matters Committee, I think it was Economic Matters Committee, to make sure that this was part of it. So congratulations on that, and thank you for your work. And if we can help with anything as you do your work, let us know, okay?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you. You too.
My pleasure. And then for the committee, this actually concludes the bill hearing for today, the hearings and the briefings. So we're done. And if you could take us down for a second, and then I'd like just a second with a